Hey guys, it's yours truly coming back at you all with another one, and I do apologize for any inconvenience caused as I have been really busy. I messaged in my Discord last night, responded to you guys. Yes, I am still alive, just been really busy. I aware that the Synchro event had started from midnight last night, and since last night I have been at it critiquing decks for you guys to be able to play during this Synchro festival. So for you guys who looking for something aside from the 3 loner decks that they do give you to play, I think I have just the deck for you. A number of different decks for you guys to play. First up on the list, I call it Restricted Thunder. It's really simple. Your main focus is to utilize Harmon and the draw power through Fallen Paradise and then stunning the field with Skill Drain. You just play 3 copies of Chaos Summoning Beasts, 2 Moxie, 3 Dark Beckoning Beasts, 3 Ash, 3 Dark Summoning Beasts, 2 Lord of Striking Thunder. This is your main focus. This is what the boss monster that you want to get out to utilize. You also play 1 Ravael, then you play 1 Raigeki, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Foolish, and then you play 2 Pot of Advice, 3 Rhesus Map, 2 Fallen Paradise, 1 Cerulean Skyfire, 3 Opening of the Spirit Gates, 2 copies of Call by the Grave, 2 copies of Impermanence, 1 Solemn Judgment, 3 Skill Drain, and 1 Awakening of the Sacred Beast. Now, the Synchro monsters in the extra deck, this is just to fool your opponent. You're not going to be able to summon any of these, but it's to make your opponent believe that you are playing a Synchro style deck, when in actuality, you're just playing a stun beat down deck. On to the next deck, Anti-Grave, and I call this Anti-Grave because it restricts your opponent from utilizing the graveyard. That's its main focus, because the entirety of the Synchro mechanic does revolve around some decks more heavier graveyard utilization than others, but the mere fact is that most Synchro mechanics does utilize the graveyard, and this deck does a really good job at restricting access to the graveyard. We are playing Demise in this. That is why I'm only playing 16 monsters, because of Demise. Mainly your hand traps, you're not going to get to utilize them heavily. That's why I cut down on those. We go and we play 1 Droll, 1 Moxie. Because we do banishment, we play 2 copies of Grin, 3 Banisher of Radiance. We also play 3 copies of Ash, just to turn off those pot cards in Moxie interactions. 2 King Tiger, and I'll show you the combo with him that really hurts the opponent. Play 1 Doom Caliber Knight. This is just for Monster Negate Beatstick 1900. Then we play 2 barriers, and the reason why I chose the Torrent barrier and the Inferno barrier is because most Synchro mechanics are between Dark, Wind, and Light. A lot of really decent Synchro mechanics revolve around those 3 attributes. Using Torrent and Inferno slows down their ability to special summon to be able to get into those Synchro monsters that can potentially threaten your lead opposition in a duel. 1 Nibiru, self-explanatory, simply because we're playing Carter Demise. There's no need for heavy Nibirus or a heavy amount of hand traps. We are playing the staple Raigeki, Harpy's Feather Duster, 2 Carter Demise, your 3-Pot of Duality, your 3-Pot of Desires, because you do want to draw into your combo pieces to restrict graveyard interaction, as well as either clear the board or just simply stun your opponent. We play 1 Lightning Storm, 2 copies of Moon Mirror Shield so you can beat over, 2 Psychic Blade so that you can beat over, 3 copies of Burden of the Mighty, and this is the card that you would combo with Tiger King. Using Tiger King and Burden weakens the opponent's monsters by 100 since it's the Synchro event, every monster that your opponent plays is going to have a level. So they're gonna hurt themselves for the higher the level, and if their attack is 1400 or less, Tiger King automatically destroys it. So when your opponent tries to go Junk Synchron Revive, Tiger King will pop the Junk Synchron and the monster that it would attempt to bring back from the graveyard. Using it with Burden of the Mighty ensures that you weaken the monster enough for Tiger King's effect to potentially destroy it. Play one copy of Twin Twisters. This is just for, back row. Evenly matched. This is just in case your opponent does go off and gain some sort of advantage. You can evenly match them. One Solemn Judgment, and 3 copies of Microcosmos. You restrict the graveyard play mainly through your 3 copies of Cosmos and your Banisher of the Radiance. And same thing for the extra deck. Any 15 random Synchro monsters will do. You are just here to fool your opponent. And on to the next deck. You can also play a Mecha Lord Synchro version deck. Pulling it up for you guys right now. Basically, you utilize your Mecha Lords and the Wind Witches to go into your Synchro mechanic plays. You also play Gyama instead of Nibiru, because in this one you want to focus more on just stunning the monster effects than anything else with this deck. So you're going to play the 1 copy of your Cyframe Driver, your Effect Veiler. This is what I'm talking about, being more focused in this deck on negating monster effects. So when they would go off to revive or add a card from deck to hand or from the graveyard or wherever, you can negate those effects to keep your opponent from extending. Then you only play 2 copies of Wizel, the Mecha Lord Emperor, and 1 copy of Grenell, the Mecha Lord Emperor. You play 1 copy of Snowbell. You play the Synchro Absorption, was 1 copy. You play 3 Mecha Lord Nucleuses. You play 3 Maxi. You play your 2 Gammas. You play 3 copies of the Sunrise Signaler. This is to special summon out any of your Mecha Lords. Their attack and defense always equal each other, 0 and 0, 25 and 25. Easy way to break those out. And if you open up with Ice Bell, you automatically go into that Crystal Wing that cannot be destroyed by card effects, which gives you an automatic negate on a monster that can just power up and beat over your opponent's monsters. Play 3 copies of Ash, 1 copy of Ghost Bell, 1 copy of Freeze Bell, 2 copies of Glass Bell, and you play 1 Pancratops. Also, you play the Astro Dragon Tiscalion, however you pronounce that. That would round off your monsters. And then you play the staple Harpy's Feather Duster, 3 copies of Mecha Lord Assembly Line. This is how you get your Mecha Lords from deck straight to hand. You play 2 copies of the Call by the Grave, self-explanatory, just to hold off your opponent's hand traps. Cross out Designator, so if your opponent would go Gyama on you, Maxi or Ash, you can turn those off, because there are those players who are playing Gyammas. So I did want to include Gyama in a deck, also with Cross out Designator, to be able to hold off those plays. You also play 3 copy of Impermanence, which, keep in mind, Crossout Designator can also turn off Impermanence as well as Call by the Grave if your opponent does, and that is why Crossout Designator is so good. If you and your opponent are playing similar cards, you can go Crossout Designator, turn those off, and keep you in the duel. You play 3 copies of Impermanence, 1 Astro the Eradicator, and 1 Imperial Order, just to turn off your opponent's spell cards. In your extra deck, you play 1 copy of the Herald of Arclight, 1 copy of the Old Entity Hastor, 1 Stardust Charge Warrior, 1 Clearwing Synchro Dragon, 1 Zeta, 1 Winterbell, 1 Samurai Destroyer. He's excellent at bringing your Mecha Lords back from the graveyard to the field. You play 1 copy of the Winged Pegasus, 1 Colossal Fighter, 1 Crystal Wing, like I said, cannot be destroyed by card effects. You also play the one Kite Drake, the Emancipator Rising, the Diamond Bell, the Forpurgate, the Time Lord, and the Baron de Florel. And on to the next deck. This one I call Banish the World, simply because it focused on banishing all of the monsters in the decks and giving you the advantage. So if your opponent has no monsters in their deck, they literally cannot synchro summon. The focus of the deck is really banishing the Necro Faces. You play 3 copies of Necro Faces, and then you utilize your Lava Golems and your 2 Kaijus, Jizukiru, to out your opponent's monsters. They're gonna go hit those big synchros. You can easily out them with Lava Golem and the Jizukiru. You also utilize 4 Time Lords as well. Cut your opponent's life points in half. Also inflict the monster that it attacks damage, as well as an additional 2,000 points of damage and acts, and they also act as a wall. We do play Card of Demise in this. That is why we have a low monster count. We play Card Destruction. We play 3 copies of Upstart to turn this into a 39 card deck. You can actually cut 2 Upstarts if you want. It's up to you. 2 Card of Demise, 3-dimensional Physios. This is to ensure that your opponent does not have any monsters going to the graveyard and they do get banished. We play 3 Reload. You can either cut, like I said, 2 Upstart, or you can either cut 2 Reload. Reload just gets you a better hand, so it's up to you. I would preferably cut the 2 Upstarts, because if you don't get the hand you want, you can reload and see what you can get better. Play 3 Inferno Tempest, and this is where you utilize, after you've tripped off your opponent's monsters, the Lava Golem, your Jizukiru, to help you banish all of the monsters in the deck. Then your 3 Necro Faces go off, banishing 15 more cards out of your opponent's deck. So if your opponent is already playing, let's say the standard ratio is like 20 to like 30 monsters in a deck, and if they're playing a 40 card deck and they get hit with Inferno Tempest, they lose 20 to 30 monsters, and then an additional 15 for your Necro Faces, 5 for each one. So they're gonna lose 15, and let's say they're playing 20, they're gonna lose 35 cards. And if they open with a 5 to 6 card hand, means that you just emptied their deck and they are going to deck out. You also follow this up utilizing the Torrential Tribute with your Time Lords to clear the board. You also follow up with Dimensional Wall. So after you do take that 3k or more of damage, you can make your opponent take the additional attack. You also go Blazing Mirror Force to inflict that damage to your opponent as well and destroy the monster that you gave them. You play the 3 Zoma Spirits, because once your monsters get banished, you can use the Zoma Spirits, being a trap monster, as 1800 beaters, as well as if your opponent still has a monster on board or can manage to magically create a monster. Once it comes in contact with the Zoma, it's going to inflict that attack to your opponent's damage as well. And then you're going to play 3 Microcosmos, because it's named Banish the World. You want as many cards as possible banished from your opponent's deck, so that you can potentially cause them to deck out or beat out their life points through your Dimension Wall and your Blazing Mirror Force in combination with your Time Lords. And on to the next deck, we play Draco Demise. Draco is such an annoying deck to deal with on the whole, and it would probably make almost every single festival, because like it's like Monarchs, just more annoying. You play 2 copies of Maxi, 2 copies of Ash. We are playing Card of Demise, that is why we cut down on our hand drop ratios. You play 1 Jester, 3 Ignis Heat, 1 what's this guy name, Dynamite, 2 Nibiru. We cut down on our hand drops to 2. We play the Terraforming for the field spell, 3 Card of Demise, 3 Pot of Duality, the Draco Diagram, 3 copies of Heritage, 2 copies of Draco Phoenix, 2 Call by the Grave, because when you do try to add, your opponent may try to disrupt. You always want to have that at least. And then you're going to play 3 copies of Waterfall of Dragon Souls, 1 Imperial Order, 2 Skill Drain, 3 The Monarchs Erupt, 3 True King's Return, and 2 Apocalypse. That's it for the deck. That you're just going to basically stun your opponent out of the duel and utilize your resources in terms of the Draco cards, popping monsters and spells and traps off the field and then regurgitating them. The next deck is Dino Fury. Basically, you're just going to use dinosaurs to beat down your opponent, and any 15, well, I wouldn't say any 15, because you can make a couple of these synchros in the deck, including Trishula. But basically any 15 random synchro monsters would do. I do encourage the High Paladin to be included. You can make it, and if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, it halves your opponent's life points, so that is a really good synchro that you want to utilize. But in the main deck, you play 2 copies of the Ankylosaurus, 3 Baby Cerosaurus, 3 Moxie, 2 Petriodon, 3 Ash, 1 Scrap Chimera, 3 Miscellaneousaurus, because you always want to protect your dinosaurs in case in Nibiru, 2 Soul Eating Oviraptor, and I've honestly not really gotten to play dinosaurs to that extent since Oviraptor is now at 2 in this game, 2 Scrap Raptors, 1 Pancratops, 3 True King Lily, however Disaster, 3 copies of him. You're going to pop 2 Earths. You're going to go into your opponent's extra deck and you're going to take out 3 synchro monsters that could potentially be threatening to you. You're going to play 2 Ultimate Conductors, 2 Nibiru in case your opponent goes first and tries to combo off, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Terraforming, 2 Double Evolution Pill, 3 Fossil Dig, 1 Lightning Storm, 1 Dryonic Diagram, 2 Lost World, 1 Twisters, 2 Call by the Grave, and you're going to play 3 copies of Forbidden Droplets. So if your opponent goes first, you don't open with Nibiru, you have Droplets, you can turn off those really annoying effects, and then you can hit your Ultimate Conductor, turn them face down, and erase them off your field. Then in the extra deck, you can, like I said, you can play any random 15 synchro monsters, but the synchro monster that I do overall that's in here that I recommend is the High Paladin. You can also make the Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend in this deck as well. You can also make the Boron de Floriel and the Atomic Scrap Dragon and Scrap Twin Dragon, along with the original Scrap Dragon, because you do play the Scrap Chimera and the Scrap Raptor, so you can make those. And that is it for the deck. On to the next deck, Virtual World, because you can play Virtual World in this festival. They have a synchro mechanic, yeah, let's utilize it. You're gonna play 3 copies of Maxi, 3 Ash, and this build is really simplistic because you're just gonna see a lot of 3 outs. 3 Virtual World Him, 3 Virtual World Maya Him, Lulu, 3 Gigi, 3 Leo, 3 Lili, and then you're gonna play 2 copies of Nibiru, 3 copies of Demise, 3 copies of World City, 3 copies of your World Gate. Then you're gonna play 2 copies of Emergency Teleport, 2 copies of Call by the Grave, 2 copies of Crosser Designator. Like I said, excellent. You can turn off those Call by the Graves. You can turn off your the Ashes, the Maxis, and the Nibirus without harming your own. Whereas with Call by the Grave, if you Call by the Grave something, be careful not to activate that hand trap during your opponent's turn, because it's going to be off for both the duration of you and your opponent's turn. That's why I prefer Call by the Grave. So I would prefer to Call by the Grave Nibiru overall. But if I'm forced to, I would Call by the Grave I would cross out Designator Maxi. if I don't anticipate a Nibiru, so that I can activate my Moxie during the opponent's turn. And I would call by the grave Ash hands down. And then 2 copies of the World Gate Chi-Chi. And then in your extra deck, you're going to play 2 copies of Charge Warrior, 1 Coral Dragon, 1 Virtual World Beast, Jaiji, 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, 1 Mistworm, 1 Trishula, 2 Cloud Castle, 1 Vermilion Dragon Mech, 1 Revelous Croco Dragon, whatever the hell else the rest of the name is, 1 QB Shishin, Boral de Florel. You can also make Ultimaya Zolkin. This is how you're gonna break out your Crystal Wing and your Geomothmech Final Sigma. On to the next deck, Cosmos, because they can be played. In your Cosmos, you play 3, I like to call Can Unit Era, 3 Moxies, 2 Strawman, 3 Farm Girl, 3 Ash, 2 Wicked Witch, 2 Slip Rider, 2 Dark Lady, 2 Forerunner, 3 Destroyers, 2 Nibiru, 1 Raigeki, 1 RP's Feather Duster, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Lightning Storm, 2 copies of Cosmo Town, 2 copies of Emo Teleport, 3 Call by the Grave, 3 Infinite Impermanence. On your extra deck, can be any 15 random synchro monsters, but keep in mind you do play Ash. She is a tuner, so you can hit off some really good synchro plays. So you can go Tin Can Ash and make your Herald of Arc Light. You can go Strawman and Ash, and you can make your sorry, you won't be able to make her. You won't. I should have put in a legitimate Synchro 5. I just was really putting in randoms here. But you can make the Coral Dragon using Farm Girl and Ash. You can also make your Riser Dragon using your Ash and Wicked Witch, and also Quantum Dragon, and as you go up in the list, because you do have Slip Rider, that's a 5, you utilize with Ash, you guys get the idea. Basically it can be any synchro monster from level 4 and up that you can utilize in your extra deck, that you can make utilize in a combination of Ash and any of your other monsters. And on to the next deck. This is just a generic synchro engine that you can utilize. You're going to find yourself going into like the rare dragons, so that's why I have them in here. I didn't fill out the extra deck because you can utilize any other synchro monsters that you would like, but the main objective is to utilize the engines of the Assault mode and your Dawn and Dust Walkers as special summons, and then utilize Chain Resonator to get additional Resonator monsters from your deck to continue to synchro up. You also utilize Hyper Liberian as your draw engine, so you can continue to draw into more cards. In the main deck, you play 1 Super, 1 Synchron Resonator, 3 Chain Resonators, 3 copies of Psy Reflector, 3 Moxies, 1 Crimson Resonator, 1 Fire on Ascaster, 1 Creation Resonator, 3 Ash, 1 Assault Beast, 1 Assault Sentinel, 2 Dawn Walkers, and 2 Dust Walkers, along with your 2 copies of Nibiru, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Pot of Adverse, 2 Resonator Calls, 2 Emergency Teleport, 2 Twin Twisters, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Crossout Designators, 2 Forbidden Droplets, and 1 Assault Mode active. And this is a generic engine that you guys can use and customize your extra deck to your likings. Like I said, with Crossout, the more cards that you and your opponent are playing alike, the more you can cancel out or have an interaction or a disruption against your opponent. In the extra deck, you want to mainly utilize your TG Hyper Librarian, and then it goes from there. Your level 6 Synchro players with your, and 8 Synchro players as well with your Dawn and Dust Walker. That's why you see Charge Warrior, Red Rising Dragon, because it can bring back your Resonator and go into an additional Synchro play. The original Red Dragon Archfiend, the Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, your Chaotic, your Chaos Ruler, your Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, Abyss, Bane. You also can make Tyrant, Nova Dragon, Calamity, and Red Supernova. You can also incorporate, like I said, any 3 additional Synchro monsters, or revamp the entire extra deck to your liking, mainly ensuring that you do utilize the Hyper Librarian. And this is what I'm currently playing in the Synchro Festival. It's a version of My Hotter Than the Sun. Pull this up for you guys. I'm playing similar to the generic engine, just with some minor modifications. This one that I'm playing 1 Supe, 3 copies of the Synchron Resonator, 3 Chain, 3 Psy Reflectors, 3 Moxie, 1 Red Resonator, 3 Crimson Resonators, 2 Creation Resonators, 3 Ash Blossoms, 1 Assault Beast, 1 Wandering King Wildwind, 1 Assault Sentinel, 2 Supe Dust Walkers, 2 Nibiru, 1 Monster Reborn, 3 Resonator Calls, 2 Emergency Teleport, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Crossover Designators, 2 Resonator Commands, 1 Assault Mode Active, and 2 Red Rain. And in the extra deck, I play the Samsaria, 2 Red Rising Dragons, 1 Red Dragon Archfiend, 1 Bezel, 2 Scarlights, 1 Chaos Ruler, 1 Abyss, Bane, Tyrant, Red Nova, Calamity, and 2 Supernovas. This is what I'm personally playing in the event. There's a simplistic version. Oh, here it is. That's a bit easier to play if you don't want to go through all those combo hectic things that I have in mind. This is way easier to play. You basically are going to utilize, instead of the Assault Engine, you're just going to utilize your Red Sprinter and Wandering King Wildwind to go into your Synchro plays. You're going to play 3 copies of Synchron Resonator, 3 copies of Chain Resonator, 3 Moxie, 3 Crimson Resonators, 2 Dark Resonators, 1 Fire and you guys know, 1 Creation Resonator, 3 Ash, 3 Red Sprinters, 3 Wild Winds, 2 copies of the Dawn Walker, 2 Nibiru, 1 Monster Reborn, 3 Resonator Call, 2 Twin Twisters, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Crossover Designators, 3 copies of Resonator Command. And this is how you switch from your Resonators, whether you open with them or you add them to your hand, sending them to the graveyard, to use your Red Sprinter to revive them, or your Wild Wind. So if you special summon this guy while you control no monsters, you can special summon him, save your normal summon for your Chain Resonator, make your Synchro 6 play into your 8, and then Chain Resonator. You guys know. That's what Resonator Command is for, so you can get your level 4s to hand, or if you need to get the Crimson Resonator from deck to hand to go off on your plays, and then 2 copies of Red Rain. Then you basically play the same, just about the same thing in the extra deck. The Samsaria, 3 copies of Red Rising, Red Dragon Archfiend, 2 Scarlights, 1 Chaos Ruler, 1 Abyss, Bane, Tyrant, Red Nova, Calamity, and 2 Supernovas. This is the simplistic version of what I'm playing, just to keep it simple. And yeah, these decks you can use for the entire festival. You should get a great deal of results. So yeah, until next time guys, later.